standing right here on the Strait of Hormuz and showing you all the players right off the top. President Donald Trump rejected Iran's latest peace proposal. In fact, in a social media post over the weekend, President Trump said he disliked the response from what he calls Iran's so-called representatives. Mr. Trump calls Iran's proposal totally unacceptable. Well, as you might imagine, Iran fired back. In fact, a spokesperson for the foreign ministry there saying the deal demanded only the country's legitimate rights and included no concessions. The spokesman added, "What is urgent is ending war in all of its forms, including Lebanon." Now, just last hour, the president was asked about the status of that ceasefire agreement. This is what he had to say.
For the time being, the ceasefire remains in place.
It's unbelievably weak, I would say. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support. They understand these are all medical people. Dr. Oz, life support is not a good thing. Do you agree?
Bad prognostic.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us now. You spoke to the president on the phone just before this event in the Oval Office. So if the ceasefire agreement is, as he says, on massive life support, what does that mean as we hope for an end to the war?
Well, what it would typically mean is that he's predicting a return to fighting. When I spoke to him this morning and asked him whether he was going to resume Project Freedom, he said maybe or maybe something much worse. So he's sending signals that he could resume his strikes on Iran. Whether or not he'll actually go through with that remains to be seen. He has made similar threats in the past, only to allow the ceasefire to continue as he works to get some kind of agreement with Iran. But he's very unhappy with Iran's latest proposal. He described it to me as badly written and badly delivered. A stupid proposal, he says, that didn't make enough concessions when it comes to Iran's nuclear program.
And we know, of course, that's a major red line for the United States, but we also know the president would need to engage Congress to engage in further military efforts, no?
Well, that's a great question. The White House has argued that that Project Epic Fury has now wrapped up, and therefore they don't need to get approval from Congress for that because it was within the 60-day time frame. Would they simply argue, if they resumed strikes on Iran, that this was a new conflict and that the 60-day clock would be starting all over again? It's really hard to say, but you know, I don't think that they would let the lack of congressional approval stop them from whatever they wanted to do militarily if they believed that it was time to resume strikes.
So as we wait, potential rebranding, repackaging, and a new clock, and what would happen there, I also have to ask you about any plans to ease the pain at the pump. Of course, Americans are feeling the ripple effects to this.
Sure. And President Trump has been saying for weeks, if not months now, that gas prices are going to plummet as soon as the war ends. But we're now in month 3 of this war, and it is still ongoing. So I asked him this morning if he is open to a suspension of the gas tax. This is something that his energy secretary was asked about this weekend, and he signaled that, yes, the administration might consider it. And President Trump told me point blank today that, yes, we are going to take off the gas tax for a period of time. And then when gas goes down, we'll let it phase back in. Now, the president cannot do this unilaterally. It would take an act of Congress. But immediately after we posted those comments from the president, both Republican Senator Josh Hawley and Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna both announced that they would immediately introduce legislation to suspend the gas tax, which is 18 cents a gallon. So it is not enormous. It's not a huge game changer. But President Trump characterized it in the Oval Office as a little bit of relief, and every bit counts, he says. What we don't know is how long exactly this gas tax would be suspended. And of course, there is a cost to all that. This is money that goes into the federal coffers to pay for highway repairs, highway maintenance, construction, other transit projects. So the question would be, do those projects get suspended as well, or would that money come from some other source?
Okay, and I have to follow up on some breaking and developing news that's coming into us. Sources tell CBS News that President Trump has approved a plan to fire FDA Director Marty Makary. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, this was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. CBS News has now confirmed it that the president on Friday signed off on a plan to fire the head of the FDA. Now, it doesn't appear that they've gone through with that plan yet. Makary was not in the Oval Office this morning when President Trump did a health event. That was notable. And it's always possible that the president could change his mind. But it does appear that Makary is on the ropes. And the Wall Street Journal reported that it was because there were those in the administration that were frustrated that it was taking too much time to get flavored vapes approved by the FDA. We also know that there are pro-life groups that have been angry that the FDA still approves some medication abortion. Unclear what exactly the final straw was or is, but it would obviously put the White House in a position of having to find a new FDA administrator, a very important position, especially as the FDA and other federal agencies deal with this hantavirus case coming off of the cruise ship that is currently docked overseas in Europe.
No shortage of headlines there at the White House. Nancy Cordes, thank you so much for chasing answers on all of them. Good to see you.
You're welcome.